Welcome, everybody, to Connecting the Universe. I'm author and researcher Mike Ricksecker, back at you with another interactive class out of the secret library of the Connected Universe. Yes, we are on a Thursday night tonight, and well, that's because I just got back from Conscious Life Expo out in Los Angeles. And so a little exhausted to do that last night on Wednesdays, which is our normal time, our normal day of operation, 8:00 p.m. Eastern Time, Wednesday. So those that are listening to the podcast version of this later, I invite you to join us every Wednesday night, like I was saying, 8:00 p.m. Eastern Time for the full interactive experience here with us on Connecting the Universe. So tonight, speaking of connecting the universe, we're going to be talking about the collective consciousness and eternal knowledge. How are we all connected via consciousness? And how are we able to access what I like to call eternal knowledge? There are other names for it, and we'll get into some of those things along the way. So, do want to also invite everybody to the Connected Universe portal, which is where you are interested in the after show of this. That's where you can find that. That is for Connected Universe portal members, or what we call our time travelers. And also, you get a lot of other information back there, a lot of other content, I should say. So you get sneak peek and behind the scenes videos, monthly Q&A videos, exclusive articles. You get like all the Egypt material, which is extensive, and so much more. So that's connecteduniverseportal.com. And Scarlett is in the house. Great to see you down there, Scarlett. Saw you at Conscious Life Expo, which was absolutely amazing. So it's always wonderful when I can actually meet with people from the show that join us out here usually Wednesday nights, and be able to interact with people that I haven't been met face to face, but talk with and interact with on a regular basis, because Scarlett's also out there on Twitter or X, and is always sharing things out and commenting and all that. Emil is in the house as well. Great to see Emil, and others are joining as well. So yes, like I mentioned, I was out there at Conscious Life Expo in Los Angeles this past weekend. If you have not yet been out there, I really, really highly encourage it. It's absolutely amazing event. And, I was really honored that on Friday night, I spoke on the Ancient Secrets panel. I have a clip from that I'm going to play. So a lot of great people on that panel. Jimmy Church was hosting. Linda Moulton Howe was on that panel. You had Brian Forrester on that. Michael Cremo, an absolute legend in the field, of course. Jason Quitt was on that. Matt LaCroix was sitting right next to me. And then Bryant Dragon Arnold from Skinwalker Ranch was also there as well. So really, really good panel. A lot of great interaction for 2 hours to really kick things off that Friday night. Then I had my Travels Through Time workshop on Saturday and my Stargates and Portals lecture on Sunday, and both of those were absolutely completely full. There were people outside the door waiting to get in, hoping that people would get up out of their chairs, because it's a really packed schedule at Conscious Life Expo. Got an hour and a half workshop going on, and they might have to leave after the first hour because there's somebody else that they wanted to go see, and headed off to elsewhere in the hotel. It's a really, really big event, and so people are hoping that others would get out of their chairs so they could get a seat. And that a little bit of that happened. But the whole point of this is those two, presentations were just a piece of what to expect at the Connecting the Universe Portals to the Stars event. This is an exclusive event, Rahway, New Jersey, Merchants and Drovers Tavern Museum, April 5th, 2025. So those on the East Coast that did not come out to Conscious Life Expo, and I get it, going out to LA is can be an expensive airfare, and you got the hotel and everything. I get that. But if you're on the East Coast and want to check out those presentations, this has even more. Not only do you get the secrets of time travel and the stargates and portals, you also get the Egypt Atlantis connection and the triangle areas of the world. Not to mention, of course, you get the exclusive book signing and everything else that goes with that, meet and greet and everything. So please join us April 5th. Just go to my website into the events and tours section, and you can find all the information there and where to register. So, all right. So I mentioned that Ancient Secrets panel. What is that Ancient Secrets panel? Because the theme was Earth Mysteries, and Jimmy hit us right off with what is the most mysterious place in the world that, or what you think is the most mysterious place. Either you'd like to explore or what have you. And there are some really, really good answers. I chose Antarctica, which if you've been following along on social media, got a nice reaction from the crowd when I said that, because I posted a clip of that. But there was another part of that panel in which, well, I'll just play the clip and we'll go ahead and talk about it. You're going to hear two other voices in there. One is Linda Moulton Howe responding to me, and then Jimmy kind of follows that up real quick too. So let me play this clip and we are going to discuss.
How are they communicating that? We'll get to that in a moment. But to answer your question, I think that's one of the reasons why, go back to Antarctica here, why people are looking down at Antarctica. Very mysterious. Again, access is very limited. What is hidden under that ice? If, like Linda had mentioned earlier, that everything connected. By the way, Linda, I love that you said connected universe, because my new book series is Connecting the Universe. So
it's the most important concept for humans to get now and get it right.
It's the next stage of evolution. You're absolutely right.
Absolutely agree with that. With everything having previously been connected, is that technology that was used to move these blocks, is there a hidden pyramid under the ice there? And that technology with it to move your Pillsbury biscuits, is that technology hidden under the ice there? Is that what we are truly down there in Antarctica to find? Very well could be. As far as communication, so my latest Connecting the Universe book, portals to the stars, stargates, portals, ancient Egypt, all that. Yeah, I talk a lot about stargates in there, but I think we always think of a stargate as we're going from here to somewhere else in the cosmos, like the movies and the films and the television shows and all that. And yeah, very well could be. But I think something that we forget about is the global consciousness, and yes, how we are all connected. So these Stargate chambers that we find in Egypt, and they're labeled very in plain sight, Stargates. Instead of the idea of going somewhere else to the cosmos, was this a way to go into this chamber and be able to communicate in a way with perhaps not even realizing that we are communicating with somewhere else on the earth, but sharing the ideas, connecting with consciousness across the earth, maybe even like Linda was saying, splitting in two and having these conversations with other beings across the globe to share these ideas, and that's why everything looks similar.
All right. So yeah, Jimmy's initial question, he followed up there basically asking the question again, how do they move the blocks? Well, what was the technology that they used to move those giant blocks that we can't move today, that trying to pick up like those stones at Baalbek and things like that, we can't do it today. So how did they back then? And so this idea, and basically where I was going with the Antarctica idea, was that under the ice there could very well be technology that has been hidden since for thousands, millions of years, possibly, that would have been the technology used to move those blocks, whether it's some sort of anti-gravity technology or sound technology or something like that. It's hidden down there under the ice, and where Linda kind of came into play on that. She had been previously talking about parts of the world being physically connected long ago, and so I was hearkening back to back when the world was connected. We know that Antarctica was in a location that could grow jungles, that could And I mentioned in the Antarctica clip about the maps where, we see that we could see land and there were animals that were depicted and things like this. So it's a much warmer area of the world. Okay, so that means that these cultures were once much, much more connected. And we also talked a little bit there about consciousness. So in a couple of different aspects, physical connection back to all these different cultures that at one point they were a lot more connected and they didn't have to worry so much about traversing the entire oceans to be able to try to establish commerce or communicate or these sorts of things. That they were actually physically closer. But then there's also the idea of that connection via consciousness, that we are all connected in this universe, and that the ancients had ways of being able to communicate via consciousness across vast distances, whether that was somewhere here on the earth or somewhere else out in the cosmos. And that sort of connection in many ways has been lost over time. And I mentioned the Stargate chambers there in Egypt. And that is one of the things that they could have very well been doing, that, we always think of, like I said, going off to great distances in the cosmos, but it might not could have certainly been a physical thing that happened. But it also could have been a consciousness thing that happened, that we were communicating between each other. And I talked about this in my Stargates presentation. I have I didn't include it here, but I have a funny graphic of an ancient Egyptian guy on a cell phone next to a Stargate, and he's talking to somebody. And but that could have been that these what we're calling Stargates, could have been ways for ancient peoples to communicate, maybe across the cosmos, maybe to somewhere else on Earth. And that's how they were exchanging this information and these ideas. And that's why so many of these different pyramids look similar. That's why we see the pine cones all over the world, the handbags represented all over the world, and these sorts of things. So, all right, I'm going to show a graphic here that many of you have seen many times, but others who are newer have not. So this is the Chandra X-ray telescope image from about, I want to say about 15 years ago now. And this here, we're talking about connections in the universe. This is an X-ray image of the universe. Yes, it's enhanced, it's colorized, and that sort of thing. But it shows you, okay, all those little yellow-orange dots all over the place, those are galaxies. And that kind of webby type feature that you see all over, those are basically gaseous filaments that are connecting all of these galaxies across the universe together. So we are actually physically connected to each other. It's not just a mystical, ethereal thing that we don't understand outside of spirituality. We are actually physically connected. And yes, we are spiritually and etherically and mystically connected as well. And that's the part that we are trying to understand a bit more of, is how does that aspect work? I think people can understand, okay, great, we're physically connected. All those galaxies are connected together via gases. We know that there are gases all over the universe. That makes sense when you look at imagery of nebulae, when you look at imagery of galaxies and things like this. Okay, there's that physical connection that we have. But then when it comes to what we call spiritual, that is greeted with with, I guess I would say, a mixed bag. I mean, science typically likes to scoff at that. And then when it comes to the spiritual side, you have all kinds of different groups fighting about how that spiritual side should work, how it should be honored. We assign different deities and things like this. And if you don't worship the right one, then we're going to hate on you and things like that, which is really, really unfortunate, because that's not what it's supposed to be. It's supposed to be an expression of love. But a lot of those groups end up hating on each other, and then you have science, which again kind of scoffs at it, and then essentially, I don't want to say laughs at the infighting, but it makes their job a lot easier. It makes it easier to scoff at the spiritual side when they're all fighting with each other. But the thing is that the two really work hand in hand, and you can use science to prove spirituality. You can also use spirituality to prove science, and wish they would come together, because one proves the other. And so there has been some interesting science here lately, over the past several years. And again, another one that we've talked a bit before about here on Connecting the Universe. And I do present this during my presentations. And that's the work by Roger Penrose and Stuart Hameroff. In this particular article here, although there's research has been around for a while, researchers suggest the human soul doesn't die. It returns to the universe. And their work on microtubules, the discovery of quantum vibrations and microtubules inside the brain, inside brain neurons, supports controversial theory of consciousness. So basically, you have scientists here saying that yes, consciousness does exist. Now they believe it exists in the microtubules in the brain. And you have a lot of other people saying that, well, you've got heart consciousness as well. We've covered heart consciousness here before in all of these different things. We also have people that say, well, the brain actually works as a radio receiver, and consciousness is downloads. So this kind of adheres to that a bit, although they don't go the whole projection route. They're still so they call it like the brain is a biological computer, and human consciousness is a software program that is activated by the bioquantum computer inside the brain. So so the consciousness is loaded up into the brain, and the brain functions with that human's consciousness. But then after death, the consciousness goes where? Well, that's the thing. They don't know. They just say returns to the universe, which is interesting that you have scientists saying this. And so when that article first came out, I kind of laughed and said, well, it looks like science is catching up with spirituality. Some things that we have been talking about for thousands and thousands of years, and here's science finally catching up with it. But if you ask the scientists, Penrose and Hameroff, where does it go? They can't tell you where. They just say, returns to the universe somewhere. So, so the program's loaded up in the brain, or into the computer, and the computer stops, but the actual data, to me, and this is why I don't understand why these guys haven't gotten on board with the whole idea of, I almost want to call it, cloud computing of the universe, of the connected universe, because, if this computer right now just died, okay, just suddenly didn't work anymore, I'd have all the data on the hard drive, but it wouldn't be functional until I applied or took it and put it into another computer. And has anybody seen Altered Carbon? So that was an interesting idea, interesting concept where the consciousness, the person was loaded into, it was almost like a little hard drive or something. They would insert it into the back of the neck, or lower back of the head there, and it would essentially load into this body, that person's personality, all their memories, and all that. Although they could essentially switch from body to body to body. So kind of that sort of concept. But the fact that you do have scientists saying that it goes off to somewhere else in the universe is interesting, because this is modern science, right? This is just over the last, Penrose and Hameroff started their research back in the 90s, and this article came out here over the past, let's see, when was this? That was 2019. So about 6 years ago, right? And I do liken it to some of the ancient beliefs. And when we talk ancient, we talk ancient, like Egyptian ancient. And so, got a couple of questions and comments here. Just wanted, before we get to this next segment. Tom says that means occasionally our consciousness needs an upgrade. Well, I think the hardware that the consciousness is inside of, like the body needs an upgrade sometimes. The consciousness is persistent. Might need some updates from time to time. Like we'll get in some more information, but or maybe like a patch to make sure it works a little bit better. But the hardware like this, that kind of ages out. So Scarlett is asking, is that the same as quantum entanglement? So in a sense, yes, because we're talking about the connection back to source, whatever that source is. We're going to get a bit into the idea of simulated universe, how time really works and all that here in just a little bit. But yeah, it would be via entanglement. And Matt is saying transfer to another part of the universe, possibly. So, all right. So when I said that this is similar in nature to what the ancients believed, I'm going to put up here the Orion constellation. Why am I putting up the Orion constellation? Well, the ancient Egyptians believed that upon death, that the soul, now they believed in 7 different parts of the soul, and some texts that you read, it might be 9. So there's a little controversy there as to how many parts of the soul that they believe, but generally 7 or 9 parts of the soul. And different parts had different functions. And you had the Ka and the K-bit that would hang around on Earth for a while. K-bit was the shadow. The Ka was an animated part of the soul and would eventually join the rest of the soul up in the constellation of Orion. Of course, Anubis was the guide to take you there. And you had the false doors and the tombs that the Ka could use to access. So, but this idea that the soul, the consciousness, goes off to somewhere else in the universe, again, namely the constellation Orion. But this is, now in their ancient belief system, they didn't really think of the afterlife in the way that we generally think of the afterlife. It's not really a life after your physical one. It's basically a continuation of your life, just in a different form. It's part of the journey. Now, we are, according to them, supposed to have come from Orion. So we come down here, we have our life, we go back to the constellation of Orion afterward. Now, what's interesting about this concept here is that you have, and I used this image because they do kind of very vividly here show the Orion Nebula, which is a part of the constellation of Orion. And the Orion Nebula is basically a huge center of star creation. So this is where a lot of stars are born. And what's interesting is the kings in the ancient Egyptian belief system, when they made this journey, the kings would become the stars. And here you have the Orion Nebula. Now, the ancient Egyptians did not have powerful telescopes that could see the Orion Nebula. They could see the constellation of Orion, but they couldn't see the nebula up there. That is something that we in modern times have been able to see. So how did they know? That this is from when we came, and then they go up there and become stars, and the Orion Nebula is actually a major center of star creation. They knew some things here that they should not have known but did. And so there's a connection there between them, really us and Orion. And I'll throw out there that I believe that at some point we really did come from Orion, that humanity started there, or at least part of our journey throughout this cycle of the universe came from there. So another interesting aspect of the ancient Egyptian religion, for lack of a better term, so is in the Book of the Dead, which is actually kind of a misnomer. It's the book of going forth by day. We call it the Book of the Dead because that's what one of the German archaeologists, when the first discovered version of this was found, ended up calling it. So we've gone with it. It sounds cool. So this is a piece of the most famous of the Book of the Dead, the Papyrus of Ani, and there are many different versions of this. Whether in papyri, and going to be different books of different people. This is Ani. Ani was a scribe back in the day. We don't know if he wrote this or if it was commissioned by him to be written after he died. We don't know that part. And you'll find books of the dead written on sides of sarcophagi and things like that. But this is one of the most beautiful, largest, and ornate. It's absolutely wonderful. So in this, now what's kind of interesting about this is you see him in front of Thoth, which is God of knowledge. But in the text in this particular section, he's talking with the creator god Atum. And as he's talking with Atum, he asks, what will be the span of my life? Now, throughout this entire narrative, Ani, he's there pictured with his wife, Tutu. They're dead. They're dead in this narrative. Their physical body has already passed. But he's asking, what will be the span of my life? Which is a really interesting question to ask if you're dead, which also tells us that they did not believe in the afterlife the way that we look at it today. It's just another part of the journey of life itself. And so Atum responds with, and this is actually a screenshot of one of my slides from the presentation. Atum says, you shall be for millions on millions of years, a lifetime of millions of years. And I use this when I'm describing my stack time theory, as an example of what the ancients believed about time. And so, yeah, you shall be for millions on millions of years, a lifetime of millions of years. So giving us that idea of layering of time, which is exactly what I'm showing. We'll get into stack time theory here in just a moment. But that's one of those ideas. But he continues on. And I get this AI that showed up backwards. There we go. This is the second piece, where he says, the earth shall return to the primordial water, to the surging flood, as in its original state. And so he's talking about the destruction of the earth, but the rebirth of the earth as well. And what's interesting is I had used this quote in Travels Through Time. It was absolutely appropriate, of course, talking about stack time theory. And it gives us this other image of the Ouroboros, where he says, I will transform myself into something else, namely a serpent. And that is the Ouroboros. We'll get back to that in a second. But this piece here, the earth shall return to the primordial water, to the surging flood, as in its original state. When I was doing the research on the Edfu texts for Portals to the Stars, now the Edfu texts have the homeland of the primeval ones is the description there. Basically, it's a story of Atlantis written on the walls at the Temple of Edfu. And there's a fantastic book of like the original research, Eve Raymond, back in the early 1960s when she published this, where she had essentially interpreted all the texts and had references back to other works. And in this piece on the Atlantis story, she makes a reference right back to this, the earth shall return to the primordial water, which I had already used for Travels Through Time. So it's like, oh, wonderful seeing all these different connections from one to the other. So it really, to me, kind of helped reinforce everything I was talking about. So thank you, Eve Raymond. So I, again, quoted this in Portals to the Stars. So, but the idea here that we are, returning to the primordial water. You got the surging flood, so this cleansing, this absolute renewal, and then we have right here the description of the Ouroboros. So, and this is the one that's on King Tut's tomb. So, yeah, here they're wanting the, and that's his burial shrine actually, not his tomb. Yeah, they are wanting the renewal of life of the king. You know, they want their king to be reborn, of course. But again, they also use this imagery for talking about the earth, like we just were, and also the entire universe. So yes, recycling and renewal of the planet, because the planet, like we do, and this is interesting, our connections back to the planet itself, is the consciousness of the earth, planetary consciousness. So here, astrobiologists suggest the earth itself may be an intelligent entity. So, you know, here we have another example of how the scientists today are catching up to the ancients. You know, the ancients, and in our community, we've been talking forever and ever and ever. You know, our connection to the earth, our connections with nature, and even the earth itself, earth energy, all of these different things. You know, give reverence to Mother Earth. And here now, finally, scientists are saying that Earth itself may be an intelligent entity, and so. It's fascinating for me to see that scientists here, and I'll just read a little piece of this in the abstract, which says, here we consider the ways in which the appearance of technological intelligence may represent a kind of planetary scale transition. Our approach follows a recognition among researchers that the correct scale to understand key aspects of life and evolution is planetary, as opposed to the traditional focus on individual species. Thus, our purpose is to introduce and explore the consequences of the idea of planetary intelligence. So, and they go on a little bit and say that this concept may prove useful for three distinct domains: Earth systems and exoplanet studies, Anthropocene and sustainability studies, and the study of technosignatures and the search for extraterrestrial intelligence. So saying that, yeah, this concept and this idea is not only good for studying our own planet and our relationship to it, but also when we search out in the cosmos for other intelligent life. So this goes back to that idea that we are all made of stardust. And it's not just, some metaphysical woo-woo, cosmic idea, kind of, smoke the funky stuff and, we'll all see, vivid imagery, that sort of thing. It's not that. It is an absolute fact that we are all made of stardust. Even got books over there by Michio Kaku, who's quite a famous physicist today. So in the same vein as like Einstein and Tesla and all that, Michio's one of those modern guys, and it's one of his quotes as well. We are all made of stardust. So it's not just metaphysical, mystical mumbo jumbo, and it goes back to the way that planets in the solar system and all that are formed. Okay, we go back to the Big Bang. From from this singularity, everything exploded outward. So we are all, in that sense, also once connected, like to the entire universe. So when we are all one. We'll get a little bit into that, but let's first keep it a little bit simple. The birth of a solar system. Well, what about our solar system? Now, our solar system this is not our first go around. Okay. There are many physicists who believe that we were basically born out of another solar system. So the Earth is only 4.5 billion years old. The entire universe is around 14 billion years old. That means there's like 9.5 billion years there that, what happened. And there was a recent study here that came out, I think it was a month or two ago now. I posted it onto my social media where you have some saying, well, the Earth, this all has to do with math, not the Earth, the universe. If we actually calculate it this way and take some other things into consideration, it may actually be close to 27 billion years old. So, Earth is 4.5 billion years old, and the universe may be 27 billion years old. What happened in all of that time? That's almost double from what they previously thought. So, let me give you a little perspective here. So, I mentioned Michio Kaku a moment ago. This is actually a quote from my book Portals to the Stars, which you see on the back shelf there. And that will be the featured book at the Portals to the Stars special event in New Jersey on April 5th. But what the quote is, some physicists have shown that our solar system was born out of another, which was destroyed billions of years ago. And when the remnant gas and debris recollected, it formed the solar system we are familiar with today. Physicist Michio Kaku tells us in his book, Parallel Worlds. Did I just mention Michio a moment ago? Yeah, definitely got to pay attention to. And this is his quote. These are his words here. This also means that our sun is not Earth's true, quote unquote, mother. Although many people of Earth have worshipped the sun as a god that gave birth to Earth. This is only partially correct. Although Earth was originally created from the sun as part of the ecliptic plane of debris and dust that circulated around the sun 4.5 billion years ago. This is, of course, an artist's representation of that. Our sun is barely hot enough to fuse hydrogen to helium. This means that our true mother sun was actually an unnamed star or collection of stars that died billions of years ago in a supernova, which then seeded nearby nebulae with the higher elements beyond iron that make up our body. Literally, our bodies are made of stardust from stars that died billions of years ago. Michio Kaku, physicist, one of the guys who developed string theory. Okay, he was like the guy. It says literally, our bodies are made of stardust from stars that died billions of years ago. We are all connected, absolutely connected. And you see that recycling and renewal. So there was already some other sun out there, some other star, which all of this was already a part of. Whatever that solar system was, we have no idea. Absolutely no idea what existed there. There may have been planets with life. Maybe that's how this got seeded, was because that solar system was also seeded. And when that went supernova and everything was destroyed, it formed back up around other stars, and boom, here we are. So yeah, that is a recycling and renewal of a solar system. So as things die, they decay into the ground and therefore spring up new life. We see that all the time out in nature here. So nature renews, planet renews, the solar system renews. These galaxies also do the same, recycle, renew. Same with, what's the next level? The universe. The universe also does the same. And that's a little bit of, we have a hard time imagining that. What's beyond the universe? We don't know. Some other place in which contains more universes. And this is, another, when you go down the route of, our when you go down theoretical physics. This is one of those ideas out there, is that beyond the universe, there are other universes, that we are one of a multitude of universes that are out there. And our universe happened to have the right conditions to be able to form up the way that it has and produce life on planets. But other universes have other nuclear properties, and some just never really get started. Some burn out too quickly. Ours happens to be doing pretty well. So when we look at the formation of the universe, we're getting to eternal knowledge here. So we have the end of time and the beginning of time, using the symbolism of the Ouroboros again here. So this is like that, Big Bang moment. So when the universe began, it started with that boom, that Big Bang. That's what we have deduced at this point. Well, then what happens at the end? Well, there are a lot of people out there who believe that the universe once again will explode. They call it the Big Crunch. So we had the Big Bang, and then there's the Big Crunch. So everything kind of compacts in on itself and boom, explodes out again. This is highly controversial there, but any theories talking about the formation of the universe and what will happen, some people say it's just going to expand out and just fizzle, and that'll be it. But that doesn't adhere to everything else that we have learned about nature, where everything recycles and recycles and recycles. So somehow this will be recycled, and boom, we'll have the Big Bang again. And I believe that when we look at the Ouroboros, where the snake eats its own tail, that's a symbolism, and the ancients knew this, that the end is the beginning and the beginning is the end. And that also gets into the parallel universes running reverse time, but we're not covering that tonight. So to try to give I've used this image for other concepts when we're talking about what a like a real wormhole would look like, but I'm going to use it in the vein of looking at the universe from outside. Okay. And that's this. I've used this before for a spherical hole, but let's just use it right now in this case as this is the entire universe, and we're looking at it from outside our fourth dimension. So I say our fourth dimension. People are probably, what do you mean our fourth dimension? Yes. Our consciousness is in the fourth dimension that we call time. We're multidimensional beings. Our fourth dimensional consciousness is inside our third dimensional body. When the third dimensional body passes, our fourth dimensional consciousness, and we're back to that again, goes off to the cosmos. And where does it go? Does it go off to one of these other higher dimensions? We have up to 11, 0 through 10. Or does it go to even beyond that, to what we might call source? Here's some heavy-handed representations of what it would look like beyond our what we see. I guess we see the third dimensional world, right? We are fourth dimensional consciousness, but we are able to see all those dimensions below ours. So when you look here, the controversial 0, which is a point, one-dimensional line, two-dimensional square, three-dimensional object. They're using a cube here, and this is where it gets really heavy-handed. So we just put more cubes on top of a cube for 4D and more cubes on top of those cubes for 5D. That, to me, that's a really, really heavy-handed approach. But because we don't have the proper geometry to see beyond those, and that's a topic that's a little bit beyond this particular discussion, but we have talked about it before. So from the fifth dimension and beyond, all time would be seen as an object, just like this bottle of water. So if I'm in fifth dimensional space, I can see all of that as an object. It's right there. Time as the fourth dimension. If this bottle was the fourth dimension, I'm back here. I'm looking at time. Just like right now, at me being in the fourth dimension, I'm looking at the three-dimensional bottle. Take it back a step. Five-dimensional space is looking at fourth dimension of time. It's all there. It's all ever present right now. So that means in our whole universe, okay, we're taking that as the universe, and all time within it actually exists. I've mentioned before on many occasions here talking about stacked time theory. Take where you're sitting right now. All moments that have happened, are happening, and will happen are all there right now. Every moment, like a photograph in a giant stack of photos. Each moment working on a different frequency. And when I talk about real-time travel, I talk about lining up those frequencies and be able to jump from one to another, or that right now we have time slips when two of those moments happen to resonate the same frequency for just a moment. We don't have to go that far tonight. Just taking the idea that everything that has happened, is happening, and will happen, all there right now. Same thing with knowledge of the universe. If all time is there, and all those moments that have happened, are happening, and will happen are there, that means everything that has been learned, is being learned, and will be learned are all there right now. I call that eternal knowledge. The entire knowledge of the entire universe is all there right now. It's just a matter of being able to access it and understand it. We're talking about a little bit about computers earlier, about programs earlier. Well, in that sense, take a computer program, take a game. We'll just say take a computer game. You download a computer game these days. Back in the day, you had your Atari cartridge, right? And you might be on a level within that game. You might have your, the Nintendo cartridge as well, those things. You might be on like one particular level and you're working through it and all that. You're only in one little piece of that. But the entire game is there, ever present on that cartridge. You just haven't gotten to some of those different points yet. You have to, kind of work your way through it, but all of it's there. Same thing with when we talk about time. It's all here. Same thing with knowledge of the universe. It's all here. Right now, we're just in a piece of it, but it is all there. And so there are some different ways that this has been looked at over the years. So psychologist Carl Jung had his idea of the collective unconscious. And basically what he devised here was that through the collective unconscious, each person is connected with the universal experience of the human race, to the history, thoughts, and behaviors of all, and are able to access information that is readily available to everyone. And so again, I've called this like the cloud computing of the connected universe, that all of that is there, and we just need to plug into it and download that information. We also need to be able to understand it. So if there was some sort of way, fusion energy, free fusion energy that gets developed in, I don't know, the year 2121. I probably, as Mike Ricksecker right now, probably would not be able to understand what all of that is. And so if I tapped into it, what could I possibly do with it? I probably wouldn't even know what it was that suddenly ended up in my brain. So you have to have some sort of inkling about that, of what it is you're accessing. There's another, so Jung had his collective unconscious. Others refer to this sort of idea as the Akashic records. And so I have a clip here from, I want to say a year and a half ago, when we had Emily Harrison of the Akashic Academy on Edge of the Rabbit Hole to discuss the Akashic records. And so I'm going to play that clip now. It's a little bit of a longer one, about 3 minutes. And while you guys are watching that, I see that there are a number of comments there. And so I'll take a look at those.
Yes, the Akashic records are the realm of consciousness that hold every detail about your life, about your soul, past, present, all potential futures. And this intelligence is recorded from a neutral perspective. Neutral meaning unconditional love and zero judgment. This is the way that God sees you, that Source sees you. This also holds all of your highest potential. I feel like the Akashic records are the number one most powerful tool for expanding our consciousness, because they just work so gracefully with us to show us where we're blocked. These are the two big places that I love using the Akashic records, are where we're blocked and clearing that out of our way, and then stepping into our highest potential, into genius level creativity. And Mike might not use the same vocabulary as I do about tapping into the Akashic records, but his book and the intelligence that he brings when he shares his gifts and genius is coming from that etheric realm, superconscious intelligence, because it opens us up to a higher level of awareness, just like you described, Victoria, of being able to see the past lives, see the pieces, see the patterns, finally click, making sense. And while we have so many amazing healing modalities that are available to us here on the planet right now, when we take responsibility for healing ourselves, when we have the aha moments and the neural pathways shift, that's us taking ultimate responsibility for creating our lives. And it empowers us when we do it ourselves. It's like getting a boost at Jamba Juice. You get extra power for your journey, your manifesting here on the planet. And I think the healing is more effective because you're participating in this way where all of a sudden you understand. We know from the 7 Hermetic principles that the universe is mental. Everything is created from a thought. And so when you have a different thought or expanded awareness that we get in the Akashic record, you're already 10 steps ahead of the game where you were before. So that's really the place that we need to start in the Akashic records, because truly, when you think about every detail of your past, present, future, and it's not just human souls, Mother Earth has an Akashic record. The galaxy has an Akashic record. The stacked time theory has an Akashic record. Relationships have Akashic records. So once we learn to tap into this library, this resource, we can begin to extract knowledge in missing pieces that are going to further our society. We get to tap into advanced levels of creativity and bring technology to the planet, new medicine to the planet.
Yeah, so that's a really interesting episode, and you can find that down there in the I think it have it psychic abilities, and I forget the rest of it. It's one of the playlists that I have down there on the channel, so you can definitely watch the whole thing. It's really, really interesting. Yeah, a couple comments here. So Scarlett wondered, how did science come up with 11D? We don't have time to go into all of that. That you're getting to high level theoretical physics. So we're not going to get into all that this evening. Mr. Cuman, the Shadowverse. Well, I do have my series, The Shadow Dimension. So when we are talking about other dimensional spaces, again, we're not really sure what 5, 6, 7, what are in those. But certainly there are beings there. There are entities living there. We talk about like interdimensional beings or ultra terrestrials or those sorts of things. That's where many of these are certainly coming from. A lot of these things that we consider to be ET extraterrestrials, they are coming from there. That they are actually not ETs, are actually here on Earth from these other realms. And you have a lot of ET phenomena that's very, very similar to some of these other types of things that we see and experience. And yeah, when it comes to the shadows, the shadow aspect is just the way that our eyes interpreting the light, because we only see into a very, very narrow band of the spectrum. So when people go down these dark routes of, they're all dark, evil, nefarious, and most evil, stop. Okay, it's just like humans, some are good, some are bad, most are benign, they're in the middle somewhere, and it's just the way our eyes are interpreting the light of a lot of different beings and phenomena that are happening around us, is what's going on there. And so, yeah, Scarlet, such a chilling topic, need at least 3 more hours. We could go on for a while. And Tom gives new meaning to the phrase dust to dust. Kind of certainly does. Absolutely. So, kind of finishing up that idea with collective unconscious, the Akashic records, eternal knowledge. Like Emily said, I might have different terminology for it. It's fine. We're really all talking about the same sort of thing here. And so I like talking about and giving an example here. Nikola Tesla. It's really, really fascinating how, I mentioned before about tapping into that eternal knowledge and being able to understand it. If you can't understand it, how are you able to do anything with it in your life? Tesla was able to go beyond modern society at his time. We're talking like 1890s, early 1900s. Was downloading this information. He was highly in tune with a lot of these things. He was astro projecting at a young age. He knew about how the pyramids could harness power, and he was trying to replicate some of that. So he was very, very in tune. He ran his quote unquote thought experiments. Einstein did too. But when he was bringing down this information, he could understand it, and the way that he was trying to relate it back to society at that time, they thought he was out of his mind. They thought he was off his rocker, and they would laugh him out of the building. When we talk about all the knowledge of the world, being on a device that could fit in your pocket. Well, our modern cell phones today can access all the knowledge of the world, and we can fit it in our pocket. And when he was talking about wireless communications, again, he was getting laughed out of the room. That was the whole idea of the Wardenclyffe Tower, was worldwide wireless communications. And the other investors at that time couldn't get their heads around that. So you had like Marconi out there stealing Tesla's technology to demonstrate shore-to-ship and ship-to-shore communications, which they could see that as very kind of practical idea that, oh yes, we can we can now communicate long range with ships out in the ocean from the shore. And boom, you could see that, and he's demonstrating it. And Tesla's like, that's nothing. Yeah, of course I can do that. And he's using my technology. Yeah, I can do that. Ship to shore is nothing. I want to go the whole world. We can do this with the entire world. And that was just so far ahead of its time. That concept that the investors and other inventors were like, nope, you're nuts. We cannot do that. But Tesla knew it could be done. Same thing with, so this device here, he called the teletomaton, and it's basically just like a little submarine, a little boat that worked via radio waves. And his idea for this was to replace warfare with humans. The Spanish-American War was raging at the time, and his idea was to basically send this thing out into the waters, and it could choose a target and launch a torpedo and all this stuff. And he gave a demonstration of it and everything. But he took this further. Now, he was already being laughed at for this, okay? And this is essentially our first drone. But he took it further, and he said, long ago, I conceived the idea of constructing an automaton which would mechanically represent me, and which would respond as I do myself. Such an automaton evidently had to have motive power, organs for locomotion, directive organs, and one or more sensitive organs so adapted as to be excited by external stimuli. Whether the automaton be of flesh and bone or of wood and steel, it mattered little, provided it could provide all the duties required of it like an intelligent being. He's talking about building a robot with artificial intelligence, and this is like in the 1890s he's talking about this. And so again, people are like, You've got to be kidding. No, no, you can't do that. And back then, Tesla's thinking of it in gears and radio waves and this sort of thing as to how we put together even like maybe wood or whatever to be able to build this thing of himself that would look and act and respond just like he would. So yeah, these concepts are far out there that people just laughed at him. Now, he didn't know it was going to take the silicon microchip, but he knew it was possible, and that was from the information that he was downloading from, again, what I call eternal knowledge, and what others call the collective unconscious or the Akashic records, or these things like this. Now, I also use this example when I start talking about the idea of the simulated universe. I was going to talk a little bit more. I didn't really get to it so much here tonight. But when people talk about, like I talked with Riz this past weekend, he wrote, the simulation hypothesis book. A lot of people think of it as a modern computer, because that's, to us, the height of our technology right now. And we saw, the Matrix movies and all that sort of thing. So that's where our mind is right now. But there are other technologies that we don't know about yet, that we don't understand yet. And that was the same thing with Tesla's. He had all those ideas of, drones and AI and all this sort of thing. But he didn't really understand how it was going to work. Silicon microchip hadn't been developed yet, and that was going to be the way it would actually happen. Now we understand that, but there are other things that we don't yet understand that we are going to discover and tap into. And there's going to be someone along the way, like a Tesla, who's got those ideas and puts them to work. And there's going to be some other technology that will develop all these things. So I think that us living in a simulated universe is something more organic or biological in nature that we don't quite understand yet, but would be the nature of it. But certainly it does exist. So, all right, everybody, we are we're at our hour here, a couple minutes past. So we're going to go ahead and wrap it up. Again, all those that are listening to the podcast version of this later, please join us every Wednesday night, 8:00 p.m. Eastern Time, Connecting the Universe, connecteduniverseportal.com. Till next time, if time really exists. Oh, and for those listening to, for those here, we do have our after show. Can't forget about that. Those that are members of the portal, hang on. Those that are not, again, if time really exists.